Welcome back to the Bootleg Football Podcast, Combine Edition. We just went through 4 straight days of watching 8 hours of Combine drills per day. We have a lot to talk about. First, we're doing a 2-part kind of recap show. First one on offense, second one on defense. But before we get to all that, 2 most important questions of the day to my wonderful co-host, EJ. First things first, what are you drinking? How are you feeling?
I am drinking Jameson Black Barrel, my current favorite Irish going. Seemed like a fine choice for some warm and happy Combine results, some warm and happy Irish whiskey, and I am great. I'm a little bit tired. Feels like 4 straight work days on top of a couple of regular work days, yes. But it's all good stuff. I probably blew it out a little bit too much on Saturday. I OD'd a little bit on Combine footage. Needed to kind of take a break on Sunday morning, went for a mountain bike ride and came back and watched the end of the drills. But just so many great performances. Look, it's one of the coolest events in all of draft prep. People overreact to it, but you can learn a lot if you do it the right way. So super excited to talk about all the things we got to see, all the great performances, all the not so great performances. We'll talk about a few of those too.
Yeah, I think it's hard to kind of contain yourself from overreacting to the Combine sometimes, but we just get so much new information. We get all these different results, and obviously watching the drills on the field, we finally get to actually compare some of these guys head to head that have never shared the field before. So it's a fun event. We just have to try not to get too deep in the weeds with it, which I know as draft analysts we tend to do. But it was a good 4 days. Speaking of kind of overdoing on Saturday, I myself went out and bought myself a nice new bottle of Lagavulin 16 because I knew that I was going to be drinking that for this long night that we're about to embark on with these recap episodes. That's what I'm drinking tonight because it's a very comforting scotch to me. It's kind of my preferred Isla when I just want to relax and feel nice at night. It's smoky, so it's a little acquired taste, and everybody likes the Islas, but man, that finish is just so nice and refreshing. It just lifts off the tongue, makes me feel good, puts me to bed all nice and tired. So I've got that going tonight. I do want to start off just kind of with opening thoughts, since we are talking offense first. Just 3 general thoughts about the offense class here. Number 1, there is speed all over the place, especially at wide receiver, and just depth.
I hope there's not absurd.
It's death for defenses. Death for defenses for sure. Every body type and play style is available. If you're missing a true X, if you're missing a slot receiver, if you're looking for like a gadget guy, if you're looking for a hybrid running back receiver, I mean, everything is available at the market when it comes to the receiver position in this class. And I don't think I've ever seen anything this deep before. I don't know if I ever will again, but it would certainly be hard to top it. And I really enjoyed watching them kind of run around and do drills because one after another, you saw, okay, he's going to be a top 50 pick. He's going to be a top 50 pick. He's going to be a top 50 pick. And you get,
pretty soon you got 27 top 50 picks.
27 top 50 picks. Like, half the first couple of days is going to be receivers, but man, they're good. And then not to be outdone, this tackle class is just crazy. It's probably the best since 2008. People forget how good that 2008 tackle class was. Maybe not a whole bunch of Hall of Famers, but you had Jake Long in there, who was pretty good before injuries kind of ruined his career, but he was on a Hall of Fame track. You got Brandon Albert, you had Ryan Clady, you had Gosser Cherilus, Dwayne Brown, who's obviously still playing at a high level. I mean, there was a lot of tackles in the first round in that group, and at least 5 out of the 7 that went in the first round worked out. And I think we're going to see the same kind of depth and overall success of the tackle class this year because there's just so many of them. And then third, maybe not as top-heavy is the running back group, but in terms of values, there's a lot of values that people are going to get on day 2, like true 3-down backs that I think are going to make immediate impacts, who I'll talk about in a little bit. But again, maybe there won't be a first-round running back this year. I kind of lean towards there won't be, but there's going to be a ton of them in round 2 and 3, and at least I think 5 or 6 of them are going to be starting pretty quick in the league.
Yeah, I think running back is kind of the shadow sleeper right behind wide receiver. Wide receiver, if you're at all familiar, if you watched any of the combine, you got to see Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL.com draft analyst. Great guy. And he says right now he's got 27 wide receivers graded in the top 3 rounds. Now, to put that in perspective, the highest number of receivers I think ever drafted in the modern era is 33, 35 overall in all 7 rounds. So he's got 23 or 27 guys in the top 3 rounds in this class. That's ridiculous depth. There's so many good football players who are going to get picked much later down just because there's just this OD of wide receivers. And like you said, so many types. But I think running back is right behind that in terms of it doesn't have as much publicity. Like you said, it's not necessarily as top heavy. There isn't that guy or 2 guys that you think, oh, those guys are absolutely first rounders. There's definitely running backs that could get picked in the first round. But again, because of the tackle depth, because of the need for quarterbacks, those guys are going to get pushed down and they're going to start going off the board in the second. And I'm with you, second, third, even fourth. There's going to be a bunch of very good multi-role backs who are capable of contributing in the running game, in the passing game, big play, special teams. And not too many people are talking about the running back class overall because it's being overshadowed by its big brother in this class, the wide receiver class. But they're there, the talent's there, and some of them really showed out at the combine.
Who would you say, in terms of bigger names that stood out? I think you and I can just kind of give 3. Who's like the 3 big names that I think stood out to you?
Yeah, there were so many. I wanted to stay away from wide receivers a little bit. I didn't manage to. The first one that just really popped off the screen to me was Tristan Wirfs, Iowa. I had written a combine preview article for Windy City Gridiron. Wirfs was my guy to watch in the tackle class. Again, like you said, there's 5 or 6 really good tackles that could go in the first round. And I don't think that's hyperbolic. I think 6 tackles could go in the first round pretty easily. There's just this pent up need, desire, demand, whatever you want to call it. We haven't seen a tackle class this good. There's always a short supply. Everybody needs one. So we could see 6 tackles go, but Wirfs was the guy I wanted readers to keep an eye on because his feet are so good. He's a workout warrior at Iowa. Somebody posted a video of him hang cleaning 450 pounds.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was crazy.
That's ridiculous. I mean, if you've ever been around a weight room at all or any competitive weightlifting, that's just a nearly superhuman feat of strength. And he did it 4 times like it looked like it didn't even hurt him. So we knew he was strong. We knew he had great feet. There's some questions about his pass sets, some questions about his hand placement, but it almost doesn't matter because his feet are so good. And then he goes out and just lays waste like carpet bombs at the combine. I mean, and just showed what an overall athlete he is. He jumped out of the gym. He ran incredibly fast. He had a good result on the bench. He broke 2 records for combine jumps for tackles. He's not just good. He's so good. And then on top of that, you put that video of him hang cleaning 450 in there, and he's strong. He can jump. He's agile. He's fast. He's just a really, really good athlete. And he's so thick in the lower half. I mean, his lower half
looks like Thanos, man. That's how he's built.
Yeah. He's a shot putter. He's a heavyweight wrestler. He's whatever athlete you want that's got junk in the trunk and can use it. And he comes out and just wrecks the combine athletically. And suddenly, there's a lot of talk. Oh, well, maybe you should put him at guard. Yeah, that's not happening anymore. This guy's going as a tackle. He's going to be a very good one. And he just, I think, I don't want to say separated himself because there's some other very good tackles who are probably going to get taken before him at the tackle spot, maybe rightfully so, but he really pushed his way up into the top of the conversation and just couldn't be ignored after that performance. So he was my number 1. Who was yours?
I mean, another tackle, Jedrick Wills, who's, if it wasn't Wirfs that everybody was talking about, it probably would have been Wills because, again, he's another just phenomenal athlete. At the tackle position, not as freaky as Wirfs. I mean, Wirfs is one in a million, but in any normal year, Wills would be considered the guy. I will just say this about Wirfs and guard. I don't hate him playing guard because I know he can, and he would be an all-pro there. I really feel that in my bones. It's just somebody that athletic. If you're trying to match up with the super quick 3-techs of the world, you need a guard with tackle feet. Aaron Donald, Grady Jarrett, all those kind of guys. So I can see the value of him playing guard in that respect, just because 3-techs are getting faster and faster these days. You throw in Chris Jones too. But at the end of the day, you need tackles to protect your quarterback. You need guys that have the feet and the length and the power and everything like that. So he will end up playing tackle, but I don't hate the idea of him at guard just because of some of the freakishly gifted interior pass rushers we have in this league. If you're in a division that has a lot of them, like, say, the NFC West, you get the guys up in San Francisco, you got Donald. I think Seattle, their interior rush is a little bit underrated. I don't hate the idea of him playing guard in that kind of situation, but yeah, I concede most likely he will play tackle. Athletically, he's good enough for that.
He'd be tremendous at guard. I think he'd be a Kyle Long type guard, like a healthy Kyle Long type guard.
Who was really good, by the way.
Yeah, that freakish kind of athleticism where you just see him move people, right? Yeah. They're just unstoppable forces. And Wirfs, is even better, from athletic testing than Long was coming out of college. So, it's not that I'm with you. It's not that he couldn't play guard or wouldn't be fantastic playing guard. And again, it kind of depends on where he goes, right? If that guy went to, say, the Saints, they would put him at guard.
Yeah, because they prioritize interior protection over everything. That's just always what they've done. Yep. And I don't blame them for that. That's how their quarterback thrives. So again, the offense that picks him is going to use him how best you can use him. But the fact that he's so athletically gifted that you could put him at 4 of the 5 offensive line spots, and to be honest, he could probably play center too, because why not? The fact that he can play any spot in the offensive line at minimum a Pro Bowl level, in my opinion, that speaks to his value. So I think there is really no ceiling on his draft stock because of that, because he fits literally every team. But going back to my guy Wills, I think he's not maybe somebody that you want to put at guard, because I think he is a little bit more of he has power as a run blocker, but I think he's less a drive out a defensive tackle one-on-one kind of blocker, and more I'm going to cave in on a down block and then use my quickness to get to the second level and drive out a linebacker. Like if you're running gap scheme with him, again, he can do it. Maybe he doesn't have some of the strength of some of like the really good guards around the league, Yanda, Martin, everything like that can really dig out a 3 technique by themselves. But if you're combo blocking with him, if he's widening the edge on inside zone or anything, like he can do that just fine. He's a great run blocker, but it needs to be a certain kind of block for him to thrive. He's not like a Becton from Louisville. Like, yeah, he's so big and strong. He could, like if theoretically, if he was just doing like a drive block one-on-one, he could move pretty much anybody. Wills isn't really that guy. But as a pass protector, his feet are phenomenal. I think his feet are even better than Wirfs. He's not the same athlete, but in terms of how he fires out of his stance and chokes off angles from edge rushers immediately, he's got tremendous feet. His hands are better than Wirfs.
His hands are way better than Wirfs.
Yeah,
his hands are so much heavier than Wirfs too. Like his punch is just
it's devastating,
hammer fist.
Which is why it's kind of interesting how it's like, okay, you could see the power. It doesn't translate all the time as a run blocker, but you can see it. Like he's not strong.
No,
I just think there's certain systems he's better in.
Up top. Yeah, and I agree with you that he's going to have to. He's not going to have to be. He would succeed in any system, but again, if he lands, we don't talk about fit for tackles probably as much as we should. We talk about fit for wide receivers. We certainly talk about fit for quarterbacks and even corners. But we don't talk about it as much as we probably need to for tackles. And I absolutely understand what you're saying in terms of if he lands in the right place where he really jives with the scheme and they ask him to do the things he's best at, he's going to be easily Pro Bowl player, and could pretty quickly become an all-pro. Again, if he's put in the right spot, he's put on the right line, he gets the right coach, he's got everything. He's got feet, he's got power, he's got quickness, he's very quick into his set, and his hands are devastating.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it at the combine. He put a punch right into Devlin's face that just rocked him. So yeah, he's got super heavy hands. I don't know what he benched, but his upper body is extremely strong. I do think in terms of fit, you look at Cleveland at 10th overall. I don't know if he'll make it that far. I would bet against it, but let's just say he does for whatever reason.
I bet one of them will. I mean, one of them will. They can't all go. I guess they could all theoretically go before that, but they're not going to.
Most likely won't. But
yeah, you got to fit guys like Simmons in there. So there's going to be somebody that falls. Might not be him, but somebody.
But he's got the feet to play in that outside zone system they're installing there. I think he'd be phenomenal. But yeah, I was super impressed with him. Who was your second guy among the notable names that stood out to you?
Got to go back to Chase Claypool. Folks that follow me know that I've been talking up Chase Claypool since weigh-ins at the Senior Bowl. Floated the theory before just about anybody that move tight end could be in his future because he was very good. Then went out on the field on the first day of the Senior Bowl and really looked every bit a polished wide receiver. Great routes, good power, very sudden for his size. Worked himself open, but I still thought that his value as a move TE was greater. Well, went to the combine. He probably ran a little bit too well to be a move TE.
I'd still do it. Why not?
Yeah, I think in the right system where you really treat the move TE as a sort of larger inside receiver and not so much anything else. And we've seen those systems. We've seen players like that thrive. He's got the physical skills. He's got greater physical skills than somebody like Evan Engram, but he's bigger. So, what's the downside? There isn't really a downside. The downside for him is he'd get paid less because wide receivers make more than tight ends. But, he was a tick off Megatron, right? That comparison came up. He's like 4 pounds lighter, an inch shorter, ran, what was it, a tenth? Not a tenth, 100th? Off Megatron. Was really close.
Megatron was 4.35 and he was 4.41.
Right. So he's just under a tenth off Megatron at the same size, and shows out as a very good receiver too. He's not just a workout warrior, testing athlete. He's a very polished wide receiver. So probably going to get his chance to go be the big Mike Evans type, ex wide receiver. And I don't think that's unjustified, but he followed up his, very good Senior Bowl with a dominant combine and really solidified himself, even in this very deep wide receiver class, as a name you really kind of can't ignore. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got hands, he's got good routes. You can't turn away from the guy. And I still see him, down the board on wide receiver rankings. And my only question is why, right? Is it lack of production? I don't know.
I will say this. Let's say he's not tight end, but you wanted to play receiver. It was kind of brought up during the combine. Some teams asked him about, playing a big slot role. I can 100% see that because he's bigger and thicker than Michael Thomas, but also faster than Michael Thomas. You put him in the same kind of route tree that Michael Thomas runs. A lot of those deep crosses, shallow crosses, option routes, occasional fade from the slot. Like Michael Thomas, he can run every route, but he doesn't. That's just how their offense is structured. They kind of have like 5 or 6 routes that they really have him stick with that are the bread and butter. And he got 144 catches on him, so I can't really argue with the results. But I think Claypool can play that role, and just because of how freaky he is, and again, he's not raw. Like he knows what he's doing out there. You can have a lot of success doing that, and I think there's a lot of teams that. If you want to replicate the success of the Saints offense, or at least kind of their core tenets, I'm looking at you, Joe Brady, who's now in Carolina, and maybe you're looking for a little bit of size at receiver. Claypool is a day 2 guy that you stick as a big slot in an offense that has a lot of the same concepts that they run with Michael Thomas. That would be devastating.
Yeah, pretty much wherever he goes. He can win outside, he can win inside, he can win jump balls, he's got good hands, he can climb the ladder. Overpowers guys, does block, some devastating blocks floating around out there on Twitter from his time at Notre Dame, just burying little defensive backs. He seems to relish it. There's just not a lot he can't do. And with the physical profile he's put together, combined with the polish we saw him display down in Mobile, the arrow is just pointing way, way up for Chase Claypool.
100%. I would say my second guy is a running back he's gotten a little bit more publicity over the last month or so. It's Cam Akers. I think his name's kind of starting to float around there among the top 4 or 5 running backs in this class. It should. You watch him go through the drills. I don't really see a difference between him and DeAndre Swift, and a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy for saying that. If DeAndre Swift costs you a first round pick and Cam Akers costs you a second round pick, why in the world would I not pick Cam Akers in the second round and use my first round pick on something else? Because I think you're going to get the same kind of guy. I mean, it's not quite the same build. I think Akers a little bit stockier, but he's got phenomenal feet. I mean, you always say you got piston feet. I mean, those things just fire so quickly. Such good lateral acceleration.
What was that, the Deuce Staley drill, the one they named after Deuce?
Oh, my God.
The little teabag drill where they jump forward over the bag, sideways over the bag, backwards over the bag, redo it the other way. He just flew through that. And then they go up and they make him go, quick decision left or right, simulating a cut through a hole. He was just lightning through that. And he's not a small guy. And I think it was Eric Edholm who posted on Twitter, can you imagine what Cam Akers would have done behind Georgia's line?
Oh my God. I think he would have outproduced Swift. I'm honestly believe that.
I don't doubt it. I mean, it would have been very close, if not better. And that alone is enough to think of Cam Akers in the top tier running backs in this class. And I think the league knows. I think people are paying attention and realize that his supporting cast, his offensive line at Florida State, was a mess. They realized that he was a talent that was stuck in an offense that didn't really, really bring out or allow him to bring out all the gifts that he had to bear to every game. So they know, but there's still that hesitancy about production and just putting him down a tier, and somebody's going to get a value. They're going to get a back, a really, really good 3-down back, a little bit farther down than they would have because his college system wasn't ideal.
And remember, he's a former quarterback. He was the number 1 ranked running back out of high school, but he was a Wildcat quarterback, and he can throw. Florida State had him throw a few times, and other than the versatility that he brings as a runner, a receiver, a blocker, special teams, there's some double pass stuff you can run with him that would just kill people. Like, he's arguably the most versatile running back in this entire class, and I love everything about him. He's going to go a lot higher than people think. I would say my third guy, just to kind of round out my trio, everybody loves him, everybody talks about him, but CeeDee Lamb, man, it's still kind of a debate among who the number 1 receiver is for a lot of people between Lamb and Judy, and Ruggs kind of sneaks in there for a few people. Brad Kelly, I think, is very partial to Ruggs as his top guy. But CeeDee Lamb showing out as a route runner, his ball skills, he didn't run a blazing 40, but it was enough. It was enough for me. I mean, 4.51, the average 40 for the top 10 receivers is like 4.53. So if you're in that ballpark, that's good enough. And I think I don't want to say he separated himself, but he showed that he belonged in that discussion for top receiver. It wasn't just all Judy or all Ruggs. And I think he firmly put himself on the map for a top 10 selection, most likely to Arizona.
Yeah, I think CD, we'll talk about this a little bit when we get to the defensive side of the ball in the next podcast, but there is something, people say the combine, doesn't have value, and it just has different value than a lot of people think it does. But one of the sort of hidden values of the combine is alpha guys being alpha, right? Guys showing up who are at the top of the charts, in the conversation for top 3 at their position. And instead of showing up and not doing any of the drills or waiting until the pro day or just saying, no, I'm good, they show up and they show out. And they just sort of put their foot down. And that's what alphas do, right? They just put their foot down. They're like, nope, nobody's coming by. It's my spot. I deserve it. Just reminding everybody. And that's what CD did. That catch he made in the corner on the fade drill.
Yeah, the little pirouette.
Yeah, bringing 2 feet in and then, going directly into a tuck and snapping up like it was nothing. I mean, that just shows the sort of inane amount of body control that he has. He's got great size. He's obviously in tremendous shape. Like you said, the 4.5 is fine. Nobody's going to care about the 4-5 because he runs great routes, very good hands, understands the position, can run the full route tree. There's just nothing he can't do. And when he can do it that well with that much polish, I mean, the first guy that came up and congratulated him was Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy went up, dapped him up and was like, hey man, that was something. And when Jerry Judy's doing that to you, you know that you're in that conversation very, very solidly. So I completely agree with CeeDee Lamb. I'm going to go to another wide receiver, which is Justin Jefferson. And not a guy that I've been super high on, not a guy that I've been low on, but there's just so many receivers. We've talked about this, and one of the sort of things that happens when there's that many receivers, which we really haven't experienced before, is really good guys getting sort of lost in the wash. And we talked about this a little bit with guys like Michael Pittman from USC, who looked tremendous on the first day of the Senior Bowl, and really, I think in any other year would be a lock to be a first-round wide receiver. And, Justin Jefferson, huge year with the national champs, Joe Burrow throwing to him, but he just didn't nothing really stood off the page for me with Justin Jefferson. I thought he was good, but he was one of those guys in the wide middle of the wide receiver class. And he comes into the combine, runs extremely well, and shows, I think pushed himself back up into that possible late first round consideration with just an excellent overall combine, tremendous athletic showing, really good in the field drills, just kind of, again, reminded everybody, hey, I'm here. I know there's a lot of other good guys, but don't forget about me. I'm better than just Joe Burrow, right? And that stood off the page to me. It definitely elevated Jefferson in my eyes a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't expect 4.4 out of him. I mean, I didn't think he was slow. I just didn't expect 4.4, and I think he's been cast as kind of like solely like a big slot. Again, Michael Thomas, not a huge burner, great route runner, great hands, great body control. That was kind of like his comp for a lot of people was Michael Thomas. He played the same role in that offense, which was the same offense the Saints run, so it's not a hard comparison to make. But I mean, if you can burn at 4.4 and you have his route running ability, his ball skills, you could probably put him outside too, and I think he'd be just fine. So he's somebody I kind of got to go back and watch a little bit more, just because LSU had so many receivers. Most of the time, it's hard not to just watch Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire the whole time. So I got to do a little bit more work on Jefferson to figure out exactly where I'm grading him. But him showing out drills wise was certainly a head turner for me.
Yeah, and another guy like that who is not a wide receiver, but we talked about the running back class being the shadow of the wide receiver class, is Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. Now, it's kind of hard to put up as many yards and have as much production as Jonathan Taylor does and be any kind of overlooked or forgotten. And I don't want to say he was forgotten because that's overstating it. But I think pretty solidly, if you've been looking at running back rankings for the draft, he's been kind of fourth, right? DeAndre Swift has been up there. Akers is moving into that position. Edwards-Helaire is up there just on the strength of his profile, and he's a great running back. I love Edwards-Helaire, but Jonathan Taylor's kind of been hanging out in that fourth, sometimes even fifth spot because a lot of people have questions about his ability to catch. Obviously, he's a great runner, and there were some questions about his speed. Taylor comes out and runs a 4.39.
Yeah, he was moving.
He puts a stamp on it and says, oh, by the way, yeah, almost 2,000 yards and 4.39, and then goes out in the catching drills and looked way more fluid than I expected. He looked really, really comfortable catching the ball. And again, this is just, hey, the Wisconsin offense doesn't throw to the back a lot. I think he had 12 receptions this year, playing in his regular season games, and that's not, I think Edwards-Helaire had 55 for LSU, so just to illustrate the difference between the two offenses. So, the modern passing offense in the NFL, running back is a part of that. They need to run routes just as much as they need to run the football from the backfield. And here comes Taylor and says, yep, I got great production. Nobody questioned my physical skills running the ball. I'm going to look comfortable catching it. And, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to do a little cherry on top of the sundae and run a 4.39 fastest of all the running backs. Guys, don't forget about me.
I think people forgot that. I mean, he was a track star. Like he's not unfamiliar with how to get out the blocks and running at 40. So
it was really funny to listen to all the Wisconsin guys. They're like, you thought Jonathan Taylor was slow? And I don't think anybody thought he was slow, but they're like, you haven't been paying attention. Like, Taylor's fast. But I don't know what the over-under line on his 40 was. I guarantee it wasn't in the 4.3s.
No, I think it was like
somebody made money.
It was 4.49, which
right. And he ran 4.39. So that's just crazy. You made some money if you bet the under on Taylor's 40 time, which in hindsight, again, track star, lot of production, looks like it would have been a very good bet. But just another guy that sort of said, hey, don't forget about me. A lot of talent here. I understand that, but I'm part of that talent.
I think part of the reason why I think people think that Taylor is slower than he was is his running style, like his gait. Keep in mind, he's said multiple times that his favorite running back ever is Arian Foster. And he runs, like his actual like running motion looks like Arian, where it's very smooth. It's a little stridey, but he's moving, and just like Arian, he obviously didn't time like Taylor did, but he moved faster than he thought I did because he was very smooth in everything he did.
Yeah, covered a lot of ground while he was doing it.
Covered a lot of ground while he was doing it. Like, he could break off long runs where he didn't look like he was moving that fast, but he's outrunning DBs. And Taylor's the same kind of way, just with even more juice, where he doesn't look like he's moving at low 4.4 speed, but the angles are still getting burned either way. So I think it's nice to see him finally get respect as the athlete that he is. I don't know if it'll push him into the first round because, again, there's so many. I
doubt it. Just on positional value. But again, in another year, if there were maybe, say, 2 or 3 offensive tackles that were worthy of the first round and maybe 3 quarterbacks instead of the 4 or maybe 5, he could slip in like running backs do at the end of the first round, but it's just not going to happen this year with the wide receiver class, the OT class, the quarterback premium that always occurs. I would be highly surprised if Jonathan Taylor was a first round pick, not because he's not a first round talent, but because how do you slot him in? There's only 32 slots in the first round.
32 slots for 64 players that we all think are first round guys. But yeah, man, this offensive class is really fun, especially at the skill position. Why don't we go with 3 for the road? These are 3 players who turned our head a little bit. Maybe we're not super familiar with them yet, but just watching with the combine kind of left an impression on you, and somebody that you're going to definitely hit either for the first time or maybe kind of circle back for a second time, try to get a better look.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the top of the offensive tackle class, the 5, 6, 7-ish guys that are really getting a lot of attention. Everybody's always looking for that mid-tier tackle, right? The developmental tackle. Who can I get into the backup rotation now that maybe takes over for a starter 2 or 3 years down the road? We've looked at guys. I've looked at Calvin Throckmorton from Oregon. He's going to go in the lower rounds. There's a couple other guys at tackle, Matt Peart from UConn. But one of the names I hadn't heard was Ezra Cleveland from Boise State. And Ezra Cleveland comes out. Ezra Cleveland comes out and tears the top off the athletic testing for tackles at the combine. Really, again, pushing himself into a different conversation, not that top round conversation, but that, hey, you should be considering me in the sort of middle rounds. You want a developmental tackle. I've got tools for days. So I've not seen Ezra Cleveland's tape. I will now. I'll absolutely go back to that. Another guy was a running back. We talked about the running back class, but a guy out of Louisiana Lafayette, Raymond Calais, came out, ran a really good time, looked very smooth in the field drills, really opened my eyes. I was like, who's this guy? Because, again, there's a stack of running backs. I think I have 21 running backs on my watch list, and he wasn't on it. Well, he's on it now, so there's 22. And then back to Boise State, just so many wide receivers. There's bound to be one stuffed in there that you haven't seen or didn't pay enough attention to. And for me, that was John Hightower, Boise State. Came out, ran a 4.43, jumped 38 vertical, 122 broad. He's 6'1", 189 pounds, not a slight guy. Looked really smooth in the drills. Hands look good in the gauntlet drills. Here's a guy that's probably going to go in the 5th round, maybe 6th round. It's almost zero name recognition. And again, there's 27, 28 wide receivers that might go before him. That's just a lot of pass catchers, and not every team needs that many. So here's a guy that's going to be forced into the lower rounds, no fault of his own, but certainly looks like he's got a lot of talent. So I'll be spending some time with Boise State tape.
Yeah, I'll second Ezra Cleveland. He's not one of my three, but his wave drill was just whoa.
Yeah, he can move at his size.
He can really move. So I second that one. I'm definitely gonna be taking a look at him. And speaking of offensive linemen, that I'm gonna be taking a second look at Matt Hennessy, who I watched a little bit after the Senior Bowl. He was solid at the Senior Bowl. Don't get me wrong, but the way he moved at the combine made me think like, okay, now we're thinking like, okay, he could be a top tier zone center with how he was moving, and especially how when they were doing the fold block drill, and how where he's just snapping, he's out leading, and he's 10 yards down the field just looking to pick up work, and I'm like, okay, a center with that kind of movement skills, lateral agility and pass protection. I didn't think he was that strong, which, again, that's something I got to look at again. At the Senior Bowl, I felt like some of the defensive tackles beat him up with power, but just in terms of pure feet and pure athleticism and space, very, very impressive. Same thing with Austin Jackson. He's a tackle I have not watched at all yet.
You're in for a treat.
But he went through the drill. Same thing with Ezra Cleveland. I was like, okay, who is this dude with the feet? Because it's another one of those things where it's like there's just tackle after tackle after tackle, and they're all super athletic in this class. So he's definitely one I want to get to. I just got a hold of USC tape like this week. So
yeah, two things to remember about Jackson. One, he's coming off an injury, so he's not quite fully healed, right? He's not back to that full power about a year after a knee injury. Yeah. He's getting there. He's close. So he's going to basically kind of come into the league at full strength with full snap, almost a full year removed, or just a little more than a full year removed from the injury. The other thing is he's 20.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah, he's 20 and he's doing what he's doing. He's not even done growing yet. No. So Jackson is one of those guys that might slip through the cracks, be in that second tier of tackles, and provide an excellent value.
Yeah, he's going to be fun. Just judging off pure athleticism and the drills alone, I think he's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully I can get a hold of that Iowa game where he went against Epinesa, because that was probably the best test that he faced all year, other than if you win against the Utah guys too. Yep. And then the last one I want to watch, just because I have watched Alberto, but Alberto running in the combine was not the Alberto that ran on tape, and I want to figure out where the hell that speed came from, and if I just missed something. Not that I didn't like him. I thought he was really good in the red zone, but you're that big and you run in the 4.4s, that screams seam stretcher and yak monster to me, and I got to figure out if I just missed something or if he's a workout warrior. I don't know. So
yeah, I don't think you missed anything. One of the guys I write with at Windy City Gridiron is actually in school at Missouri right now, Jacob Infante. Great draft analyst if you're not following him, by the way. And he saw every game from Missouri, every home game from Missouri this year. And he came on social media after Alberto ran that and said, what? Like, he's seen the guy up close every home game this year. And he's just like, I don't know where that came from. Like, I don't know what that is. I'm as surprised as you all are. And that's saying something for a guy that covered the team as a home reporter. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure where that came from. I didn't see it on tape. I too have watched him. He definitely has some raw physical gifts. He's big. He's fast. I'd say he's fast. I 4.4. I would have told you were nuts. I would have said like low 4.6s, and that would have been fine at his size. But 4.4 was just a bolt out of the blue, man. That was craziness.
Yeah. So we got a lot of work to do on these guys, especially second looks on these guys, because the combine, it's not like it changes the grade drastically, but it does make you kind of maybe reconsider some things and maybe make you kind of go back and try to find the why behind your initial notes and see if maybe you just misinterpreted or what. So there's a lot of guys that we'll have to circle back on, but that's just part of the process. And as we still got a couple months, and as we kind of get into it, maybe we'll be able to refine these grades a little bit. But Yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed watching all these skill position players go through it, this very special tackle class go through it. My parting thoughts is just that it's yet again, every single year, we always feel like, oh, okay, we can't have it felt like a while ago there was always kind of down years in the draft. I feel like we haven't had a down year in a while. In this class, for as good as some of the recent classes have been, this one might be even better. And that's kind of my parting thoughts on the offense is it's somehow every single year it's just getting more and more loaded.
Yeah, and records are falling. Guys, are continuing to push the athletic envelope. They're getting better training earlier. They're more serious about diet in a lot of cases, and that level of athletic performance is just going up and up and up. And to see a guy like Mekhi Becton at 364 run a 5'11", like for people that are just not NFL fans, I have somebody that's a CrossFit coach at work, and she's has an athletic performance background, was an athletic trainer at UW. Has worked with football players, like isn't really into football, but is just into athletic performance and seeing people improve and get stronger. And I showed her that Mekhi Becton run. She was like, wow, that guy's got really good form. Like, how big is he? And I was like, he's 364. And she was like, shut the front door. Baloney. That's not true. Like, there's no way a guy over 350 runs with form like that. I was like, tape don't lie. Guy's 364, weighed in the day before, ran 5'11". And she was gobsmacked. She was like, and this is somebody that spends, a lot of time around athletes. And that's just the way it is. It's every year we're seeing feats of athleticism that are, like Wirfs, damn near superhuman. It's just crazy. And, better and better. And it's a very deep class. There are definitely places where it's down or doesn't have the depth, but boy, running back, wide receiver, offensive tackle, quarterback up at the top. And who knows, maybe a couple of guys will sneak out and have long careers from that sort of 4th, 5th round range. It's not unheard of. So it's a ton of fun to watch. We've got a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of ground to cover, but it was a very busy 4 days. We learned a lot. I'm starting to build up a really serious callus on my thumb from texting you, like, oh my God, blank did blank, and you going, what? checking the readout. I can't believe it. So it was a lot of fun, high volume of communication, pretty tiring, but well worth it. And we're happy to bring it to you guys.
And then one last question for you, because I know you were sneaking sips during my answers, just like I was sneaking sips during yours.
What do you mean sneaking?
How'd that Jameson treat you?
Oh, Jameson Black Barrel's fantastic. I love, base Jameson. It is, my people's water. But the Black Barrel is finished in oak barrels and sits for a little bit, has a smoother taste, doesn't really come out smoky. Has a little bit of, it's not sweeter, but it definitely has a little bit more sugar in the body. It's a little bit, it's a deeper brown than the traditional light golden sort of Jameson. It's just lovely stuff. It goes down really easy, maybe too easily. And it's just like the Lavgalen is for you. It's something I can drink that feels familiar and lovely. Speaking of, how'd yours finish up? I know you've had it before, but how'd you like it this time?
I mean, it's my favorite Isla. It always will be my favorite Isla. It's just because it's not like an Ardbeg that just blows your face off, or some of the Lafroigs will do that too. It's like you get the smoke, you get the peat, you get all that. But it just I don't know how they get this finish, but after you get that little initial Isla aggressiveness, it just lifts and it becomes almost like this refreshing, minty fruitiness, and it's an unbelievable
Scott
progression.
Tell you it's magic.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I don't know how they do it, and year after year, God bless the people at Lagavulin. You guys make a wonderful Scotch that I will drink for the rest of my life.
There you go.
But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Tune in. I don't know when we're releasing the second part of this, but we'll be doing defensive preview right after this. I'm going to continue drinking my Lagavulin for that one. As good as this offensive class is, the defensive class is just as good. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed this show. We'll be back soon with the defensive recap. And until then, see you later.